So, what is your name?
Rebecca Rathmell,
And how do you spell that?
Rebecca Rathmell.
And what exactly is your organization and your title?
The Southern Tier Homeless Coalition, and I am the COC coordinator.
What does that actually entail?
The Southern Tier Homeless Coalition is designated by HUD as the regional continuum of care. So we encompass the housing crisis response system throughout 6 counties in the Southern Tier. We're in Broome, Shenango, Cortland, Delaware, Otsego, and Tioga counties. My role as coordinator is exactly as it sounds. We're a collaborative nonprofit, and we exist by working with the homeless assistance service agencies that provide direct support to individuals and families who are either at risk of or experiencing homelessness.
Okay, so what organizations do you exactly deal with? I don't know how many are underneath here.
We have more than 30 member agencies represented across the continuum, every housing level, every service level. So locally, the emergency shelters, as well as the departments of social services that work to connect individuals in crisis with shelter support. We also work with transitional housing providers and permanent housing providers. A few examples would be Fairview Recovery Services, the YWCA, Opportunities for Broome, Family Enrichment Network maintains a homelessness prevention project that we collaborate with. Volunteers of America does every level of housing, as well as a project called Rapid Rehousing. So we maintain a collaborative relationship with that agency too. Really the opportunity within the continuum and with the coalition is to maintain as best we can an awareness of the data, identifying the trends and challenges within homelessness throughout the region, and really monitoring many of those projects to make sure that they're meeting needs as effectively as they can be.
So how does that data differ from what other state organizations or state level data has been taken?
So as the continuum under HUD, we are responsible for the maintenance of what's called the Homeless Management Information System, HMIS for short. And that runs across every HUD-funded or simply participatory agency, and it identifies the individuals who are accessing services, as well as a number of demographic and performance features. So it represents not only the characteristics of the population accessing each level of service, but also provides us with data that indicates whether the agency itself and the particular project is serving those individuals the way that they said they would.
Okay, so that differs from the state, because I've looked at state records and stuff like that, so that differs quite a bit from what they do. You said something about how they differentiate shelters compared to how you handle that.
Sure, there are a few, I think you'll find anywhere that with a number of different federal or local state agencies involved, there are always different definitions and different regulations. So for example, the New York State Comptroller performed an audit essentially of all of the shelters in his purview throughout the state, whereas with HUD and with the coalition, we would consider a shelter to be a crisis response service for individuals and families facing homelessness. The state broadens that a bit to include some of the addiction crisis services and some of the other either mental health or substance use disorder pieces. So even though they're different, I think there's data to be found across all of them and certainly to be used across all of them, and it's just a matter of knowing kind of which set you're really dialing into.
So the support system has actually been built here, and it's being continually built. It's always an ongoing process. I mean, that's absolutely. But we're getting in a good status right now. Like things are starting to get in a better situation, right? Because I know at one point it was kind of topsy-turvy, and some places refused to acknowledge that they had problems or whatever.
And we still have some districts that would prefer to not pay attention to the data that's available, that would prefer to push out those families or individuals who could be experiencing homelessness. There will always be, although we'll continue to fight it, the stigma that, oh, they just choose it and it's their fault. For us, everyone we encounter is worth our time and worth our effort and worth the service that we can provide for them. I think as a continuum, we have the opportunity to provide trainings for staff that make sure we're approaching every individual in a sensitive way, in a supportive way. The trauma associated with experiencing homelessness or even being at risk of homelessness can throw anyone's world into chaos. And so when we're designing new services even, we're doing what we can to make sure that as much as possible we're reducing the amount of time that that household is homeless and finding a permanent housing option for them.
Do these programs include possibly even the incorporation of frontline mental health or addiction? Because I mean, those are all underlying. Some of them are underlying problems.
There's many of our, I would say all of our chronic homeless population is struggling through very often a co-occurring mental health and substance use disorder, sometimes just a severe aspect of one or the other. And it absolutely impairs their ability to function, obtaining or maintaining employment, sustaining an income, which obviously is essential in obtaining and sustaining housing. So there are absolutely different aspects and features within the system itself. So we don't just include housing services, we include mental health and substance use services as well. So all of these, I mentioned Fairview Recovery Services, ACBC is a part, and this would just be Broome specific, but again, we are in 5 other counties as well. But MHAST, Broome County Mental Health, the Health Department, United Way, it takes everyone to really give a full picture of the best way to address what these families are facing.
And you absolutely devote your time too, personal time.
I do. The role that I have now with the coalition is much more oversight. It's kind of that macro level, but for me, I started doing community meals and doing street outreach, and it's important personally for me to stay connected to the reason that I do this in the first place. So coming to community meals or joining the street outreach team and connecting with people and looking them in the face and telling them that they're worth my time and that they're worth every effort that they're making to move forward. And that I'll believe in them until they're able to believe in themselves. I mean, that for me is why I have this role, so I try to stay connected.
So can you explain to me, there's a thing that I've ran across, like policy over housing or housing over policy. I know that that's kind of been a thing across the country. That's been an issue. You know, some places are more towards one and less towards the other. What is it?
So the term that I think you're mentioning or hearing about is Housing First. And Housing First is an initiative really that identifies, as it sounds, housing first. Even in the very recent past, the system has been structured so that individuals are expected to be housing ready for housing, put their mental health or their substance use issues behind them before the system would say, okay, you're ready and worth an apartment of your own. Housing First turns that on its head and says all of these issues that you're experiencing, all of these struggles are best addressed when your housing is taken care of. So it says provide a stable housing situation first, And then, of course, there are challenges and barriers to begin addressing, but it doesn't make housing contingent on compliance with the policies of a program. So what we're doing as a coalition is adopting a housing first approach, where an individual is offered housing regardless of their challenges or traditional barriers. And rather than expecting them to be ready for our service, we're doing what we can to train and equip staff to be ready for the barriers that they may be bringing to the table.
What do you see in the future? I know that I've heard new programs coming up, or some deeply integrated setup that's going on, like a 211 or something like that.
We are launching in June what's called a coordinated entry system, and we've partnered with the 211 call centers that cover our 6 counties to provide a single access method for homeless assistance services throughout the continuum. So whereas now you can show up at any agency, you can, a friend tells you about where they went when they were in the same situation, and so you show up there. Really, the onus of navigating our current system is very much on the family or the household or the individual experiencing that crisis. And it can sometimes even depend on connecting with a competent enough case manager to find your way to where you need to go. What coordinated entry does in providing a single access method in that central access approach is it removes barriers. Transportation is often a barrier to getting connected to the homeless service system. So when an individual contacts 211, if they indicate a housing need, what we've partnered with the agencies to do is that call center will transfer to our coordinated entry system staff. There will be a standard assessment across the board that really prioritizes an individual for the most appropriate type of housing. And again, that goal of moving them as quickly from crisis to sustained housing stability is ultimately what we're trying to do. But it's much more of a collaborative, coordinated approach so that access to services is no longer going to be project-based or eligibility-based, or it'll be if you have the most severe service needs, you'll be prioritized for the housing level that has the most intensive services. And we kind of work our way down from there.
So is there anything extra that we haven't touched on that you'd like to add?
There will always be more that we can do, but I do think it's important to recognize what so many agencies throughout Broome County and other counties in the region are already making every effort to do. Dozens and dozens of committed individuals who often are working even on call at times to meet people where they're at and to address needs. And there will, of course, be things that we can do better, but we're certainly committed to that.